Femme d'entreprise avec nous ce matin, Eirini Rapti. Vous avez créé la société Inne en Allemagne. Et comme souvent, quelque part, Pauline nous l'avait rappelé ici il y a quelques années lorsqu'elle avait créé Deuxième Avis, c'est une histoire personnelle souvent qui porte la création de cette société. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous en dire quelques mots sur cette histoire qui vous a amené dans cette aventure?
Happily. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit with the French. Pleasure to be here. I guess my journey into entrepreneurship was a direct result of the global healthcare system. I was a very obedient patient throughout my 20s. I was on the pill and on the coil and on the pads and whatever you name it, because I had to be a responsible woman and then go across my life. I actually spent 10 years working in healthcare and loved it. And in my early 30s, so I was 32, I ended up finding myself in a personal situation where I was single, therefore no longer a need for a permanent contraceptive method, if you like. And all of a sudden, I really realized that there is something happening in my body and therefore in my life very cyclically. And I know that for younger women, and I'm 40 today, so I know for younger women this seems like a given, but I would assume a lot of women in this room that have used contraceptives for over 10 years, the first moment you realize you actually have a cycle and it has a different effect from week to week, it's quite a revelation. And for me, what was really painful was to understand that, okay, I've discovered this, but then what is driving all of this and why I didn't know it before? Why did I have to be put on the pill? And I think the reality is, for the same reason we were excluded from clinical trials, right? Our hormones change on a daily basis and they're very hard to tame, very hard to understand, and therefore being on the pill is a very safe, easy to adhere to sort of action. But that was not enough for me, so I sort of said, okay, if I don't want to use hormones and I want a natural contraceptives, how can I not use what my grandmother used to use, which is a vaginal thermometer or a pen and paper? How can I use something that is equivalent to my Kindle experience, to automatic driving experience, to having the best smartphone in the world? And I became obsessive with hormones themselves. I think hormones are beautiful, and the fact that they are in our bodies every day makes us super special as females. And so that's how I started. And I think I would link into that to say I was not naive, right? I was 32, I was not 22 starting a company. And so I knew that the vision of, connecting with my hormones and understanding when I'm fertile and what do my, fluids mean was all nice, but I had to make a business case out of it. And preferably one that was going to make me and the world a lot of money because I was getting older. So I came into this journey very convinced that I had to look at both.
Et c'est là que votre histoire et votre aventure.
Would you do me the favor of saying it in English?
Sorry, because it's for the translator.
Sure,
if I speak in English, they
I
may mix the languages. Sorry. Je disais que c'est là que l'aventure est quand même que vous vivez est assez incroyable parce que vous allez attaquer de front l'aspect médical, scientifique de cette recherche sur les hormones et sur la manière dont vous vivez votre propre corps. Et l'aspect business et création d'entreprise. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous décrire comment vous avez vécu ces mois de création de votre société?
Happily, but I didn't feel like I was fighting any system. I was operating outside the system, which I think was a blessing to me. So whilst I had worked in healthcare, I'm not a medical professional, so I was a very interested product person. And so I spent about 6 months trying to understand the physiological and medical meaning of hormones. And by that, I mean an Evernote where I would capture all articles, interviews with experts. I reached out to all professors, doctors. I don't even know why they gave me time. I interviewed them and then I sort of organized their answers. And I had a full-time job. It was just an obsession, And then moving on from that, I used, business innovation, if you like, methods to try and understand what could we create as a product that would be medically and scientifically valid, that would take us to hormones themselves, so not by product, not temperature, not electrochemical changes in your vagina, but hormones themselves that will be easy to use for women and that would have a subscription model. Therefore, it would make a very interesting business case. And so I spent about 6 months doing that scientific research, and then another 6 months talking to women, very simply going into, tracking apps had started to come up at the time, and they all had the early days, if you remember, before big confidentiality laws, they had a community button with discussions going on and women sharing their charts and their cycles. So I just went in there and said, I'm building the next big thing. Will you have 20 minutes for me? And back then it was Skype interviews. So I just tried to understand, would they like something? What would they use? And I think I was very lucky that I was outside the system. Now, when I decided to quit my job and move to Berlin to start this, then my luck started to be a problem, because I had to connect into a healthcare system, into an investment system, into a biotech system. I started a biotech company. We needed to build a lab, but I was not a university spin-off. So no one would give me lab space, even if I had money to put scientists there to do research. So there was a romantic phase on being outside the system, and then a hard phase trying to get yourself accepted within the system.
C'est ce que vous nous dites. Ce que vous nous dites est extrêmement surprenant. On est habitué beaucoup, en général, lorsque nous voyons des créateurs d'entreprises avec un cœur d'entreprise qui est médical, dans la volonté de créer du device, une solution purement scientifique et médicale. Beaucoup de créateurs sont eux-mêmes professeurs d'université, spécialistes de tel ou tel domaine, ou se sont associés avec quelqu'un qui fait du business, mais en ayant de très très solides bases scientifiques en interne dans l'entreprise. Vous avez monté cette entreprise sans être vous-même endocrinologue ou sans être médecin ou avoir un médecin à votre côté qui possède la moitié du capital de l'entreprise. Ça a dû être extrêmement compliqué.
I don't know any other way, so I cannot answer differently. But you have on the panel 4 women who are not doctors, and we're all working in that industry. So I think that's a good example of how women are trying to take their health into their hands. I think specifically talking about my company, I basically had the luxury of having worked for over a decade in the corporate world, therefore having had savings. And so I had the luxury to take time and invest my money in understanding the problem. And then I used my connections to raise capital to hire experts. So one thing that we have in Europe really well defined is regulatory structure. You cannot build a medical company without being regulated. And therefore, you can build whatever you want in the world unless it is following medical regulations. You're not going to ship anything to customers. So yes, you can have an Eirini who has an idea and spends her time and money investigating it, but you do need experts to build a product and ship a product. And I just want to say that entrepreneurs don't fit one mold. And I do get really angry when we talk about, certain characteristics of what a founder looks like and what the right person looks like. I mean, we all know the famous example of a Stanford dropout who was supposed to be medical, and then she just misused it. So I think we need to be a bit more inclusive about different examples of how you might start a medical company. And thankfully, I work with scientific and medical colleagues for a long time.
Et vous avez donc développé, on va peut-être le voir, parce qu'on est sur votre site internet en même temps, vous avez donc développé un tout petit objet, un petit device tout blanc, alors on va retrouver la bonne page tout à l'heure, qui permet de faire des tests salivaires pour les femmes à
Yeah, you can just click on the little Inne sign on the top left, and then it will take you to the homepage, so you can see the actual product.
Voilà, donc on va demander à la régie de cliquer là-dessus. Oui, donc un petit objet. Non, ils vont revenir sur la page, la homepage, s'ils peuvent. Un petit objet blanc, très, très joliment designé, qui permet donc à une femme de faire des tests salivaires à domicile. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer comment fonctionnent ces tests, le temps qu'on retrouve la bonne page avec le bon objet dessus? En haut à gauche, voilà, tout à fait. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous expliquer en tout cas comment fonctionne ce principe de test salivaire?
Wow, spot on. I'm going to do it as you scroll through. So Inne actually has 3 components. It has a little reader, which you see there, but if you keep on scrolling, it has a small saliva test. there you go. You collect saliva for 30 seconds, and you do that on a daily basis. And then it's a lateral flow technology similar to what is used for pregnancy tests or COVID tests, but just designed in a way that you don't need any external buffering system or different things to use to make the test run. And then you insert it into a reader, and it starts...
Un petit peu plus bas, justement, on va le voir.
It's okay, it was in the front. It's okay. And then this test you insert in the reader, and it takes real-time measurement of your hormones for that particular day. And then all the data is sent to a backend. And in the backend, we collect your cycle information, your symptoms, but also your weight, any other perhaps symptoms you might have that point to irregular cycles or endometriosis or PCOS. And right now we measure progestérone, which is one of the main hormones we focused on for various reasons. It's a beautiful hormone. I feel that takes you from your follicular phase to like showing you whether you ovulated or not, and then plays a key part on the first trimester of your pregnancy for miscarriage, huge part on your perimenopause and post and actual menopause. So beautiful hormone to start with.
Aujourd'hui, votre système, il est commercialisé dans quel pays, quel continent, quelle zone?
So Inne is a medical device in Europe. So we're a class 2 regulated medical device. And we have customers in the DACH region, so Germany, Austria and Switzerland, and the UK. We also have a B2B partnership in the US, and we have sort of a version of our algorithm which helps women in perimenopause to understand whether they're in early or mid or late perimenopause, but that's only for US women.
Combien de salariés? Quel chiffre d'affaires?
So we're at a 1 million ARR and we are 27 people.
Ce qui est une très très belle réussite. Hein. Déjà, félicitations pour ce très très beau démarrage. Levée de fonds, combien? Comment s'est passée la levée de fonds?
Apologies for this.
It's okay, don't worry.
We've raised 17 million euros to date, which I believe is very little for what we had to build. And I know that it's much more than other health startups raise. It's extremely little when you look at other examples in biotech or medical devices, and we've managed to put a product into market within 4 years of inception. So has it been easy? No. Has it been hard because I'm a woman? Yes, but I want to put it into context. I believe that any sort of minority, being gender, sexuality, skin color, is going to it's going to be hard to raise money. And it's going to be hard to raise money because the majority of decision makers are white, older men. So for sure, I think the added complexity I had was the fact that my product was very much around women. So I very often had to present it in a way that they would understand it or resonate it. What I saw so I've been raising now for 7 years, and what I saw across those 7 years is a lot younger females joining the investment workforce, which made it very easy for me to have first calls and second calls, and unfortunately get a block when they go up to partners level. I see an incredible amount of new funds raised by women, where women are the decision makers, and they're focusing not just on investing on women, but investing on diversity, which I think is critical. But I also had to learn a lot about patience myself. I'm known to be, or at least I used to be, more impatient. And sort of like, I'm an operator, I need to build this, and you're the funder, how can you not give me money and give money to a fintech? I had to massage that. But I do see there is a part changing. I just hope that the decision makers that still run on the top level of funding, and I'm talking about funds that have more than 1.5 billion, for example, on their funds, not the smaller funds of like 20, 30 million. I really hope that those decision makers are going to allow women to take partner positions. And what I see is happening is a lot of younger women in the investment world put their bets on not female health because they need to have a success company for them to be promoted and then have decision-making power. It's just a vicious circle.
Eirini, justement, est-ce que vous avez été confrontée, vous aussi, à ce que nous disent Emmanuel et Christelle, à savoir la difficulté, alors, de passer l'amorçage, mais d'aller ensuite vers le deuxième, troisième tour autour de la fondation de la société, d'avoir des demandes de retour sur investissement extrêmement forts, tout en ayant peur du manque de rentabilité d'un projet centré sur les femmes.
Absolutely. The further you go, it's really, it's a paradox. The further you go into a business in female health, the harder it is to raise money. And what that means is that innovation becomes second priority, and it's a missed opportunity, and founders get tired, etc. I want to give two things to the group that I have learned in these 7 years. The first one is there's absolute global explosion in femtech. There's no doubt. What that also means is that there's very little money given in small pockets. And I have been saying from my second year in entrepreneurship, there has to be consolidation. And I believe the next 12 months, we will see the majority of female health startups either being bought out or died. It's a horrible market out there, and we are going to be the ones that get hit the most. So I don't want to be a bringer of bad news, but this is the harsh reality. And the second thing I want to put over to the group is, if we forget a little bit that we are catering to half of the world's population or to a specific group, and we look at it as an industry, it's highly regulated, it is dependent on reimbursement in many countries, different healthcare systems from country to country. So an industry you could compare it to would be the automobile industry, right? Highly regulated, patient safety, different regulations from country to country, etc. But what do you do in automobile when you want to bring innovation? There's also you put shitloads of money on it. Otherwise, you don't bring it forward. And here we're looking at it and we're just thinking, oh, I have a new fund and it can give a 100K ticket. And great, I think it's amazing. But if we don't throw a lot of capital to the right teams with the right ideas, we're not going to bring this where it needs to be, is my 2 cents.
Pauline?